On the 11th of August 2007, two young people walked hand in hand through a park in Lancaster, but because they looked different, they became targets. What followed was an attack so violent and senseless that it shocked the United Kingdom and forced the country to confront the consequences of hatred and prejudice. Sophie Lancaster lost her life. Robert Maltby survived, but the physical and emotional scars of that night have stayed with him ever since. This is not just a story of a terrible crime. It's the story of two people whose life will change forever because others chose intolerance over humanity. I'm Janice, and this is the Victims Podcast. Sophie Lancaster was 20 years old. She was creative, thoughtful, and kind. She loved art, music, and literature, and enjoyed expressing herself through the goth community. Her boyfriend, Robert Maltby, shared those interests. Friends described them as a happy couple who cared deeply for one another. Being goth wasn't about violence or causing trouble. It was a way of expressing who they were through their clothes, music, and individuality. On the evening of the 10th of August 2007, Sophie and Robert attended a nearby music festival with friends. After the festival ended, they began to walk home through Studley Park in Backup, Lancashire. They had no way of knowing before the sun rose their lives would be changed forever. As Sophie and Robert walked through Studley Park in the early hours of the 11th of August, they came across a group of teenagers without warning, from work, confronted and attacked. The violence was completely unprovoked. Robert was knocked to the ground and repeatedly kicked and punched. When Sophie tried to protect him, she too became the target of the attack. The assault continued even after both of them had fallen to the ground. The attackers eventually left them where they lay seriously injured. Emergency services were called, and Sophie and Robert were rushed to the hospital. Robert suffered many injuries, but he survived. Sophie had sustained catastrophic head injuries and was placed on life support. Doctors did everything they could, but the injuries were too severe. 13 days after the attack, on the 20th of August 2007, Sophie Lancaster died in hospital. She was just 20 years old. What had happened wasn't simply an act of violence. It raised different questions about prejudice, intolerance, and the consequences of judging people because they look different. Across the country, people began asking how something so cruel could happen to two young people who had done nothing more than be themselves. Detectives worked quickly to identify those responsible for the attack. Witnesses came forward, and the police gathered forensic and CCTV footage from the surrounding area. Within days, several teenagers had been arrested. The investigation revealed that Sophie and Robert had been attacked simply because they looked different. The case shocked the nation. Many people could not understand how someone's appearance or choice of clothing could lead to such violence. As the evidence grew, prosecutors prepared to bring those responsible before the court. During the trial, the court heard the full details of the attack. Those responsible were found guilty and received lengthy prison sentences. Although the verdict brought a measure of justice, it could never undo what happened. Robert Maltby faced a long physical and emotional recovery in the years that followed. He spoke publicly about Sophie, remembering her kindness, her creativity, and the life they planned together. Sophie's family also chose to turn their grief into something positive. They helped to establish the Sophie Lancaster Foundation, which works to challenge prejudice, celebrate individuality, and encourage respect for people who choose to look different. Sophie's story continues to remind us that being different should never make someone a target. Nearly 2 decades later, Sophie Lancaster's name continues to stand for kindness, acceptance, and the right to be yourself. Schools, charities, musicians, and communities across the UK continue to share her story, encouraging people to challenge prejudice whenever they see it. The Sophie Lancaster Foundation continues its work helping young people understand the harm caused by hatred and the importance of respecting those who are different. Maltby's courage has inspired many people by speaking out about what happened. He has helped ensure that Sophie is remembered not only for the way she died, but the life she lived. Their story reminds us that individuality should be celebrated and not feared. Every victim we remember on this podcast had dreams, people they loved, and a future they expected to live. Sophie Lancaster and Robert Maltby were no different. One lost her life, the other had his life changed forever. This story is a reminder that hatred can begin with something as simple as judging another person because of the way they look. But it also reminds us that compassion is stronger than prejudice, and that kindness can outlive cruelty. Thank you for listening to the Victims Podcast. If this episode has meant something to you, please consider the following: the podcast and sharing it with somebody else by remembering victims and telling their stories with care and respect. We help ensure they are never forgotten. I'm Janice. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode of the Victims Podcast.